Many years ago, a friend shared her favorite refrigerator dough recipe with me. I've changed it a little, but it is truly a classic, and I want to share this recipe with you. You start out with 2 cups of very warm water. You want it to be under 120 degrees, but nice and warm. To the warm water, add 4.5 teaspoons of active dry yeast. And I like to buy large quantities and then keep it in the freezer. If it's in the freezer, it'll keep indefinitely as long as it's in an airtight container. I'm also going to go ahead and add 1/2 cup of brown sugar, and this is of course packed. We will stir everything together so that the yeast dissolves and the sugar and water mix evenly. Now I'll let this sit aside for about 5 minutes to proof. What this is doing is the yeast is being reactivated by the moisture and the sugar, and if it's alive, we'll have proof of that because a layer of foam will start to form on the surface, showing that it's actually creating air bubbles. While the yeast is proofing, you'll want to melt 1 cup of salted butter and let that cool to room temperature. You still want it to be liquid, but you need it to be fully melted. Then to this, we're going to add 2 eggs once it's cool that have been beaten. Because my butter's cool, I can go ahead and pour the 2 eggs in and mix all of that together. After 5 minutes, as you can see, there's a nice layer of foam that has formed on top of my yeast mixture. Go ahead and add the butter and eggs to this, so all of the liquid ingredients are now combined. And also add 1 tablespoon of salt. I'm using pink Himalayan salt today. I'll whisk everything together. Add 4 cups of all-purpose flour to a large bowl, and then stir in all of your liquid ingredients. I like to start with a whisk. I create a well. I add as much of the liquid as I can while easily whisking it all together. Now that it's thicker, I'll switch to a spatula and use that to stir until everything is evenly combined. This is a very versatile dough. If you prefer, you can use half whole wheat flour for the all-purpose flour, so you have a more nutritious whole grain option at the end. Adding the salt is really critical. It helps moderate the yeast so that it doesn't grow up too much too quickly. So when you modify your recipe, please leave the salt in. You can also change your sugar. If you don't want to use brown sugar, you could use honey or regular sugar, but I love the flavor that the brown sugar gives this. So now that this is thoroughly mixed and smooth, mostly smooth, as you can see, it's a very, very, very wet dough. You'll want to take it, cover it, and then put it in the refrigerator for at least 4 hours. After that minimum of 4 hours, or up to 3 days, you can remove the dough from the refrigerator. Because it's cold, it will be less sticky than it was going into the refrigerator, but you'll still want to generously flour your work surface, and I like to flour it on both sides when I do this. And then roll it and shape it however you want. This dough is perfect to use for standard dinner rolls, cinnamon rolls, to make pigs in a blanket, donuts, garlic parmesan knots, or anything else you need a delicious, almost brioche dough for. To make a standard dinner roll, just use your favorite cutter. I'm using a circle that's about 2 inches in diameter, and cut these, and then I like to fold them in half, pushing them over so they have a little bit of a half moon shape. We'll let this rise for about 2 hours. I put it outside because it's steamy and humid outside, with another pan inverted upside down over top so that they're protected and they don't dry out as quickly, but they're able to sort of proof in that lovely warm environment. If you don't live in Florida like I do, putting them in a warm environment like on top of the refrigerator will help them to proof a little more quickly and to rise more beautifully. This is how I like to cover them, and they'll sit on my porch for a little while in a warm spot that isn't too sunny. For garlic parmesan knots, I usually roll the dough into a square that's a few inches wide and then cut the pieces into strips. Tie each strip into a knot. If the edges are too long, just tuck them underneath. And then place your knots on a well-oiled baking pan. For a donut, after rolling your dough thin, cut it into a circle and then cut out the center. I like to use a pastry tip to give an inner hole for the donut. And then you also have a donut hole that you can cook separately if you want. Whatever shape you decide to use for this dough, just make sure you give it the 2 hours it needs to rise before you cook it. For the regular rolls, I like to beat an egg and do an egg wash, And then you can either leave them plain or sprinkle them with salt, sesame seeds, everything but the bagel, poppy seeds, or whatever your favorite topping is. As you can see, as these rose, even though I folded them, they came unfolded. That's okay, I like them however they are. I love the organic shapes they end up with. I'll bake these at 450 degrees for about 10 minutes. For garlic Parmesan knots, grate some Parmesan cheese. Combine 2 tablespoons of melted butter with 2 tablespoons of olive oil and a half a teaspoon of garlic salt. I love the saltiness that this gives the bread. Generously brush every knot with the melted butter and olive oil mixture. Bake at 450 for about 10 minutes or until they're the color you like. If you want them a little more golden brown, cook them a little longer. Finally, for our donuts, these are ready to go in the fryer once they've risen, or you can bake them. I'm going to bake them today and show you a little trick for a baked donut. After baking, these are those delicious garlic Parmesan knots. Our regular dinner rolls, you could make them less golden brown if you prefer, but I like them this color. And I also made some larger rolls that I'm going to use for hamburger buns. Finally, those donuts I told you about, let me show you a trick. Add 2 tablespoons of cinnamon to about 1 cup of granulated sugar. Melt a stick of butter. And then take your baked rolls or donuts, dip them first on one side, then the other in the butter, and then do the same with the cinnamon sugar mixture. These donuts are so delicious and so simple. This recipe is great for almost anything. I hope you enjoy using it. I wish you were here. I would share. Please subscribe to my channel so you'll know when I share new recipes. Thanks for joining me.